there's an opportunity to change the role of how IT is viewed within any organization. So many organizations are evolving right now, and it requires a business-minded CIO and an open CEO and CFO, et cetera, to be willing to allow folks to be at the table and to work at getting to the table.
Technology is transforming how we think, how we lead, and how we win. From InterVision, this is Status Go, the show helping IT leaders move beyond the status quo, master their craft, and propel their IT vision. In my book, Amplify Your Value, I describe the journey many IT departments find themselves on. The journey from being an ad hoc and reactionary department to being a profit generator for their organizations. Today, we have the opportunity to talk with a CIO who has made this journey. Not only does he have the scars to prove it, but he has done it. His department has become a profit generator. It is my honor to welcome Pete Williams, CIO for Butler University, to the show. Welcome, Pete.
Hey, good morning. Happy Wednesday.
Glad you could join us this morning, Pete. I've been looking forward to this conversation. So I know you've been with Butler for almost 5 years now. Can you tell us about the journey you and your team have been on since you arrived there 5 years ago?
Sure. So it's been a lot of fun. We started out kind of, we're just getting to know each other and looking at the mission of Butler University and where we could contribute and how far we could help enable the mission. And so we started out really kind of at the beginning of the conversation. We had an idea for revenue and some things that we'd like to do, but we were really kind of at the stage where we were having the conversation about the thoughts and ideas that, yes, we could impact the customer experience, and that meaning our students. We have a number of folks on our staff that actually teach as well as adjunct faculty members. But for those that do not, even just making the statement, yes, you have a connection to the student experience, our customer experience, and what we work on and what we deliver helps students succeed, and so therefore we are tied to the mission in a unique way. And so at the beginning, we were having those kinds of conversations that in effect sort of justified our existence, right? And we had some back and forth on that so that everybody felt more comfortable even saying that out loud in front of other people outside of our department, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was sort of step one, to see that we could have an impact on the shaping of the university and how we, more than how we operate, but how we deliver on value. And so that was sort of a beginning step to some of these other conversations. And if we were to look at the higher ed market space, you could probably describe it as, if we're being nice to it, we're describing it as volatile at best.
Yeah.
Right? And it really links up an opportunity. I think that's just awesome. Our market space is in some turmoil. We know there's some significant demographic shifts. The cost of education has continued to increase. Things in the middle class income perspectives are changing. If you look at the graph, nothing lines up, right? So it's making some challenges, and there's good question about the value of a college education, how much it costs to attain that, and what's the value output afterwards. There's a whole bunch more to that, but in short, started out in the conversation, yes, we contribute to that mission, but then two, we might have that conversation on revenue, meaning we know we need resources to be able to improve the experience, to look at the costs. How do we reduce the costs? How do we increase the experience and the success rate for students? But how do we do that without adding to the cost of the whole organization? So we're not asking students and parents to pay more so that we can work on the process to make it better while they're here and for the folks that follow them. And so we really needed a funding model that didn't add to the debt of the institution, didn't add to the weight of the financial pull on the institution. So we said, look, let's just, while we're here, there's some things that we could do that could allow us to generate some revenue that we could put directly back into getting to our core mission and sort of changing the game for us in a way that we're not having our hands out asking. Since my name's Pete, I always joke that we don't like to rob Pete to pay Paul. and
Uh-huh. Yep.
And,
Yep.
right. And so I'm like, hey, we can't rob Pete to pay Paul. So what we need to do is we need to go make some bacon somewhere else,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of aligned with what we're doing, and then give it back to Pete so we can go do some more with Paul,
Uh-huh.
perhaps. Right. So
Uh-huh. Yep.
so we've been on this journey, and we've had amazing support from our president, who has got an amazing entrepreneurial, innovative mind, and our chief finance officer of the same thinking, and allowing us to be creative this way
Hmm.
and create the actual mechanisms that then allow us to look at things a little bit differently. Then we're able to gas pedal innovation, eliminate old processes, invest in new business opportunities that can propel us forward and differentiate Butler University as a university of choice, and hopefully have an impact in rankings, other things too. But at the core of it, it's after the student experience, and how do we deliver on the mission of Butler University around that?
So I got a couple of questions in here, but first I want to highlight, just to be sure, when you talk about your customer, you're talking about the student body or the prospects that are looking at Butler University. I always like to be clear. I'm thinking back to an episode that we just did with Matt Bellinger of Denison Parking, because when he differentiates clients and customers into two different groups because of the industry that they're in. But when you're talking about customer, you're focused on the student, not necessarily the faculty or the administration of the university.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would extend the customer view to parents of those students as well,
Ah, okay.
in a number of
Okay.
cases. In our case, the consumer.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because in my past life, I was CIO for Goodwill here in central Indiana, and we had high schools, and we always felt like parents were part of that customer equation. So it's interesting to hear you reference that in the higher ed space as well. So take us back to that conversation, if you can, the conversation with the president and the CFO about, hey, we'd like to generate revenue and we'd like to put that revenue back in the IT budget. Can you talk us through how you broached that topic and what that conversation was like?
Yeah, geez. So now I'm trying to remember what I did say.
Whatever it was, it worked, man.
Yeah, I tried. I should have recorded that maybe
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
so I could use it again. Um, it was a number of small conversations and a building of relationship and trust. And part of the reason, as I was joining Butler, we had some of these conversations that, hey, our market space is changing. There's opportunity there. There's going to be winners and losers, and the faster we can get to market with capabilities, and new product for our perhaps even new customers,
Hmm.
the better we're going to be. And so we kind of had a market focus from the beginning of our conversations. And so there was still conversation about, no, IT is a cost center. You cost money to the
Yeah.
operations to do this. And I said, well, we have, as we evaluated and built strategy, some of our big stretch goals are, as we build these new opportunities that generate net revenue or offset costs in other ways too, that could we sustain our part of the operation out of those net revenues and other
Hmm.
opportunities, right? So that we
Yeah.
could hand back the debt we've been taking annually out of the organization, right? And say, no, here, we don't need this now because we can fund through a different mechanism. And some of it was, we have these creative ideas. It's a little longer term play, but then we kind of always sort of have a shovel in the ground on stuff as we were talking about it too. So I had
Hmm.
some examples of, actually, we were able to get this done and this contributed to that. Now I'm coming to the conversation about, even looking at how we recruit talent and what kind of impact does our revenue have there, and how fast can we move with some things. And higher ed's known for not necessarily being the fastest movers. you know Higher ed has been kind of the same way for hundreds of years, and for many good reasons too, right? But how can we had the conversation, could this revenue get us to a faster way to get to market with some new ideas? And so
Hmm.
it was sort of a step-by-step deal. We had a couple quick wins. We had one component that sort of just I like to say fell in our lap or landed right in front of us, right? But
Uh-huh.
our team worked a lot harder on it than that, right? To make sure that
Right,
we could
right.
solidify the business. But it's long term contracted ARR type revenue that scales really well. And so as we did that, like that fit well with our model. The volume didn't increment us in really much of a significant way, and now we've got say $250,000 of ARR on the books every year.
Yeah, yeah,
That's long-term contracted. Then we get residuals off some, when they renew. There's just, and it really fit our model, and so then we started to think, hey, well, net revenues are pretty awesome because when
yeah,
you have a budget conversation, right? It's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
right, oh, wait, you're adding to this, and we're just asking for permission to expend it in a different way, and we don't have our hand out. It's a whole different kind of conversation. So I think everybody kind of
Absolutely.
liked that
Yeah,
when we got to the table that way, that we're more confirming a direction and we're not asking for dollars, and then we can see the return on investment conversation is much different then, because in terms of payout, I mean, you calculate the same, and we talk about it from our perspective because it's the bacon we made that we're putting into this, so we want to see that same return. But to the institution, it could be a net gain, because if I'm taking even a little bit of risk, what's the ramification if it starts paying out tomorrow for the university? That's an awesome thing, and it didn't. The university
yeah,
didn't have to contribute. I mean, it's all university funds, but it wasn't extra. The university had to go find to go get to then get to
to do
that
that. Yeah,
result, right? So
yeah,
so it shapes it a little bit different in the conversation, and so that's helped us kind of move a little bit quicker in some things. We have a target to move as fast as IT industry would in getting things to market, and that's aspirational for
yeah,
us.
yeah,
And so we're still working on that, but it was some incremental wins where we could use those to one help set up the mechanisms so that we could uh, just for instance, IT. Let's just say IT has been a cost center in many organizations for a really long time. So all the financial mechanisms and even the financial system itself are built to expend,
yeah,
not to make, right? And so
yeah.
how do we figure out? Well, okay, well we need a whole nother setup, and guess what? It's a profit and loss center, and we need to understand, well, there's taxes involved, and how does this go through, and what's that mean with our nonprofits? All those things that are sort of the accounting principles and the function stuff. We're able to use those early sort of smaller wins to vet and prove that model, and then with some folks that are creative in our department, we looked at it and said, hey, this could be just the beginning. Now that we've got the base set, creativity and a few things are really kind of our only limit. So what do we want to go do next?
Yeah, yeah. A mutual friend of ours, Glenn Keller, he's famous for saying no one wants to talk strategy when the printers don't work. So,
Yeah.
how were you able to ensure that you had the basic blocking and tackling done and doing it at such a level that you could even entertain going off and doing something like these revenue generating projects? So, what things did you put in place there to make sure that you had that blocking and tackling? And then, as a follow up question to that, how did you organize around those efforts? Is it the same staff that does both, or have you broken that apart? Talk to us a little bit about both of those things, Pete.
I feel very fortunate when I got to join the team at Butler. So we had a great beginning to work from, right? So there was a lot established here and some good rigor around operations and operational support. We're real lucky to have some very talented people in that space for us. But what we did
Hmm.
also was to take that another couple steps. Is we started to look at it from let's just say the help desk perspective. There are
Oh
typical
yeah,
systems that IT
right,
shops like to
right.
run for tickets and all those kinds of things, right? And so we took a little bit of a different approach. I think it was a bit decidedly different and a bit of a risk challenge opportunity with our team to say, hey, we've got this solid base. We have some rigor to how we handle things, and we've got some great process. But what if we were to just talk about it in terms of customer service, and not to say that they didn't have customer service focus before, but the system itself was, sort of an IT system built for IT people to do help desk tickets, right? And those are great. But then I said, let's look at it. If we're going to take a broader view and call it customer service, and let's envision that at some day that there may be other people than IT people using this system to serve our customers. Um, what would that look like, and how could we approach it, and what difference would that make for us? And then if you're able to engage in things like knowledge base and some other things that can self-serve and speed resolutions on things. And if not, there's still a mechanism to connect with us. And so we took a different view with some CRM as opposed to some of the traditional rigor and frameworks around IT and technical support. And went with a CRM with a knowledge base, and then subsequently have expanded to other departments now. So just looking at inbound work into areas, and how do we triage and handle that and transfer it between different pieces and parts of the organization in a way that we maintain
Yeah, yeah,
context and
yeah.
are able to serve our customer better. We've got easily over 100 different offices on campus that serve our customers, but knowing when and which issue goes to which office can sometimes, particularly for our customers, be like, okay, I don't know where to start. So I'll start with, say, financial aid or the admissions officer, and then they get passed around between us all in sort of a sometimes manual fashion. Our inbound work can be quantified. One, we can learn from it. We can optimize it. And in our case, on the tech side, we're able to take service requests, and our inbound volume has gone down year over year. It's been like something like 25%. And then we're able to enable our frontline folks to handle stuff that maybe a tier 2 or tier 3 type
Yeah,
person
yeah.
might handle on a regular basis. And we've also selected specific products that allow for that and are a natural fit, but we're able to do a lot more further into the life cycle or further into the responsibility chain, because we're able to offload some of the stuff that you answer every single day 5 times, right? And do it
Hmm.
in a way that serves the customer better. And then we're using that also that same system to differentiate between the day-to-day cases that come in and that work,
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and then
yeah,
also
yeah.
managing resourcing and project work in our portfolio. So those kind of things are lined up next to each other. We can balance and see how do we resource things based on that operational work. When we're doing all this, we have to be careful because we've got to make sure that the lights are on and things work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If we miss the ball on the base things and don't take care of them, we have no business in this other world, right? And my joke is kind of this: is, let's say our main ERP system's down, or the admissions process is not working, um, and I have the lights off in my office, and my boss walks in, and I'm like, "Hey, can you fix XYZ because this isn't working?" And I say, "Well, in a half hour, I'm scheduled to ideate right now, and I've got the lights off. I'll get with you in a minute, right? Like, I wouldn't be here very long, right?"
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's ultimately important. And we kind of look at, there was a trend for bimodal and different ways to talk about how do you move fast and how do you handle operations. And some of those models we've kind of changed, and sometime I'd love to share it with you when we can show pictures. But we re-illustrated some of the things. It's a combination of future state CIO from
Uh-huh.
IDG, and some Gartner, and some of the bimodal mixed with some BRM. But the way we business relationship management frameworks, which we think is really important as well.
Yeah.
And we've melded it into this diagram that we call not modal. And it's really kind of a 3 horizon model on innovation and operations. But the reason we did that was that we felt that some of the models underemphasize the value of the operations and the innovations that can come out of operations, and then how that can give you sort of the additional capacity, the new ideas that could then stack on top of each other to become more of a revolutionary transformation. And then those stack up to be this huge strategic transformation kind of thing. And so we kind of put operations at the center of all we do, and then the other things stack outwardly and sort of encompass and circle around it. In some cases, some of the other illustrations put it at the base, as at the bottom, meaning it in a good way, like you have to step up to this, then you can get to that. But it just felt like it was at the bottom of the picture, and we said no,
Hmm.
it's more at the center. And so we've spent a lot of time talking about how operations is at the core and the center of enabling all these other things that we do, and without that, it doesn't give us the insight, the heartbeat of the opportunities that are coming through our doors. That is really the important center of where we start, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, Pete, I know you just held an offsite for your team, Novus 2020. As I understand it, this was the first time that you held such an event with your team. Can you tell us what led up to the decision to do this? I'm sure it involved conversations with you and your team, but what was driving this in your mind to have such an event like that?
So we have regular all hands meetings for our staff, and it's more of a large conversation where we share all kinds of things that are happening. University level, we bring in guests from the university and we talk about some of our things, some of our projects, learnings, and we do a number of different kind of sessions. And those have been going good. We continue to evolve those, and but we've had a number of large projects that have been taking off. We've got some portfolio companies that are really moving, and they're helping us move our strategic direction. We've got some university initiatives. Now we've got a significant amount of net revenues under our belt, and we have a fund that can help accelerate things that we do. And so over the last 3 years or so, it's really come to fruition, some of these things that we started out 5 years ago. And now that we have a new Butler Beyond strategy and capital campaign for the institution, which is beginning to take more shape, and we've been invited to participate in that shaping. We felt that while we have always had sort of departmental retreat and strategy, we wanted to put everybody together and have that conversation as a whole group and have some partners and friends that we thought could really help us contribute to the thinking of, let's take a step back. We've been running 3 or 4 different innovation hedges, and we've been growing as a team. We're now uniquely positioned, and some of these hedges we've been coaching to intersection are now starting to, some have intersected, others are, we can see where they're going to happen, and we know that things are going to pop in a couple really fast ways that are going to give us really new opportunity to move forward. We're very intentional about that tying with the Butler Beyond strategy and enabling the mission of Butler University. And so we felt it was a perfect time to take a step back, inventory those challenges, what went well, what didn't go well, where are they going to intersect, then where's the university going, how are we influencing that, and really as a data step back, think about those things. We had a great chance to hear from leaders at the university and in the community. Yeah. We had just a fabulous kickoff from our president and from our vice president of innovation, and we had an awesome lunch presentation from a board member and an entrepreneur who also is an alum, and then we had some working sessions, and then we had an awesome final keynote to close out the day and call us all to action. And I think we want that guy back again.
Hey,
that
there
was really
you go.
good.
There you go.
So
I didn't ask the question to bring that up, but
so, and earlier you asked a question that I didn't answer around what staff does this, right? On the revenue or the ideas and or how do we position. Last week when we did that, the Novus Day, part of it is this sort of reframing where we are right now and where we could go and where we have opportunity and where our market space is going. But really what the day is too is it's a call to participate, or a call or an invitation to contribute. And so there are many times with our teams where we just say, hey, look, anybody wants to be involved in this, just raise your hand and participate. You don't need a formal invitation to do this. Everybody has a chance to jump in on these things. Now we have our day jobs we got to get done, right? And we have our mission, vision, strategy, objectives, and all those things. But if you want to get involved in something here and you're passionate about it, we want you to be able to have a chance to contribute. So it doesn't matter your title. We just want you to be a part of it. And it doesn't even matter necessarily sometimes at Butler, whether you're in our department or not, we'll work together. And it could be something as mundane as an org chart. Right. A couple of years ago, we did something similar with our org chart. We needed to realign it a little bit, more of just moving some things around to represent how we were operating functionally, to speed some things up and make things a little more clear from a responsibility perspective. And so we said, hey, anybody's interested in this, we'd love you to participate, because again, when we talk about operations being at the center of this thing, we want everybody to move from that center out, and then how do we innovate? And then our bets are sharper. Yeah. We're smarter thinking about what we're going to be able to do. And that group is the one that can make some change too, because it turns out they understand process across this whole organization really, really wide and very deep, because they're working in it every day for these departments, right? So we have that. And then, like as the example, we say, hey, look, if it comes out of, we call it the director's suite, where we all sit. If the ideas have to come just out of that group, we're going to miss some things, right? And so we need everybody engaged. And the team got together. We put some sort of design thinking exercises around it. We put some objectives out. Here's why we were thinking about doing the realignment. Here's some outputs we needed. And we had the team start looking at it and give us ideas and contribute. And we did some design thinking sessions around it. We did a couple iterations of that, and prototyped the org chart with everybody, and then would go back and share it to the group. They'd prototype some more. We basically took the design point blank, we took it verbatim, all the lines and everything, and put it into place based on what the team developed. It worked out so well. Yeah. It was way better that the team we had everybody's input into that. And so we do that a lot around here, and we do have to make decisions and move fast too. So we don't like to sit around and study for too long, but we do like everybody to have a voice and to feel us, particularly if they have a particular passion. Well, we want you involved and we want you enabled on this, and your thoughts and ideas are important to the process. So we kind of have that invitation to be a part of this thing, and that was part of Novus.
Yeah.
Was that we're at a sort of a pivot point where we can really make some big things go now because of what we've been building on. And then how does the team want to contribute to that? And perhaps, we have a goal. We kind of talk about, if you look at the history of Butler University, some very big, bold decisions and risks have been taken in the history of the organization, from the core tenets of its founding to when Hinkle Fieldhouse was built, to different colleges that have been acquired or merged into what has become Butler over time, and some new
Yeah.
ones that have been created within Butler. And then if you look at our market space, you look at the tech capabilities that are just exploding right now, and then you look at a university who is looking to move forward in a new, unique way. The long story short, it was a call to action to our team to say, how do you want to contribute to the future? And perhaps could some of this be big enough that we get sort of marked on the significant timeline of Butler University? And there's some really cool things in Butler's history where those decisions actually sustained the institution. As an example, Butler was the second university in the entire country to admit men and women on an equal basis. And
Yeah.
guess what? During Civil War, World War I and World War II, we were able to sustain our enrollment. And a
Right.
lot of universities either closed and didn't reopen, or just totally went out of business, or at a minimum they had to close and then reopen later, right? And so Butler didn't. That was a sort of a consequence of, I think,
Of those decisions. Yeah. Yeah.
but I would think that
Yeah.
it was because those decisions were the right
Do.
things to
Uh-huh.
to do. It wasn't because, oh well, we can sustain ourselves through these other things that we might happen. It wasn't
The
that. It
thing to
was,
do.
this is the
Yeah.
right thing to do. But as a product of that, right?
Yeah.
We hope that we're making significant contribution to the university in a way that makes the future better for Butler and for the community and how we serve the community.
Hey, Pete, before we wrap, I want to make sure that we talk about something that I know is really important to you because of the conversations that we've had in the past. So let's talk about the role of community and the role of mentorship and how that helps mold leaders in IT and in other spaces. But can you talk about why those things are important today?
Yeah, I've been so lucky that I've had so many amazing mentors. Some of them are mentoring me, and I didn't even realize it, but they knew what they were doing, right? And and I tell you what, it's how people operate, particularly, of course, here in Indiana, but in the tech community more specifically. Folks will take the call. They'll meet with you. They'll invested
Hmm.
time in you, just because it's the right thing to do, and it's not because there's a benefit to them. They're just contributing to the community. And for those that are listening, I would say this: please don't underestimate the impact you can have by just sharing some knowledge and taking a meeting over coffee for somebody, or a lunch,
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
share a story of some things that
Right.
that you had been through to help someone else as they come up, because it makes such a difference. And don't underestimate the impact that has, because it's significant. And I've had so many people that have been gracious with their time for me, and being able to take that time to invest in others. I continue to learn from my mentors, and they're just awesome. And I hope at some point that I'm able to pay it back too. I think I still have a lot to learn before I can do
Yeah.
things, but I'm always open to opportunities. But I would just share that I think it's really important for our community that we do that.
Well, and I'd say, Pete, mentorship is a two-way street. I think you learn a lot from participating and being a mentor, just like being a mentee. And I would be remiss if I didn't say I consider you one of my mentors. The work that you've done previous to Butler there at Marion, and then the work that you've done at Butler has been inspirational. And I think I believe our audience will agree based on our conversation today. What I saw through a lot of your commentary are the threads of your leadership and the way that you bring that to Butler University. I think we can all learn from that. And I think our listeners will have appreciated this conversation that we've had today. As I warned you, I always like to ask our guests to give some advice. So we were just talking about mentorship and advice. So our listeners are CIOs, senior IT leaders from across the country. What are one or two things that our listeners should do tomorrow, if not today, after listening to us?
Good question. Um, One thing I would share is, and I'll probably have a longer winded answer to this, but the short of it is don't underestimate the value, the business value that IT can create and how to, and that you can sort of, there's an opportunity to change the role of how IT is viewed within any organization.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we really didn't, so many organizations are evolving right now, and it requires a business-minded CIO and an open
Yeah,
CEO
yeah,
to and CFO, et cetera, to be willing to allow folks to be at the table and to work at getting to the table. But it's
yeah,
more of a how do we contribute to the direction and the value and the revenue of the organization. Oh, and yeah, by the way, we bring a tech skill set to the table, which enables us to help
right,
change management and all these other things in operations too, of course. But don't underestimate the value that you can bring to that table and change and help an organization morph and innovate into its new self. So that's one of my pieces that can be really profound, and it's not easy to get that trifecta set right because you've got
right,
between a
right.
COO, CFO, CEO, and I always joke and say a crazy CIO running in between all three of them, right? Saying, "Hey, I got an idea. Here's how we could do
Yeah,
da da da
yeah,
da." But if you
yeah,
understand
yeah,
if you're learning the business and you're bringing business opportunity, you can deliver on that via technology. But perhaps if tech is not your lead, but my advice is don't underestimate the impact you can have. Similar to the mentor conversation, mentee conversation, don't underestimate the value you bring to the table. If your
right.
gut feels in a meeting that you can say, hey, look, no, XYZ can contribute to more customers here than experience there. I mean, go for it, right? It's there's value
Yeah,
there, and you don't
yeah,
have to stay in the tech silo. It's much better, perhaps, if you don't.
yeah. Great advice, Pete. And I really want to thank you for your time and jumping on the call with us today. I think there's several threads in this conversation that, if you're open to it, maybe later this year, we'll have you back on the show and explore some of these deeper. But with all sincerity, thank you for talking with us today. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me on the show. Love to talk some more when the time's right. But thanks a bunch for having me on this. This is really great.
To our listeners out there, if you have a question or want to learn more, go to intervision.com. The show notes will provide links and contact information. This is Jeff Tunn for Pete Williams. Thank you very much for listening.
You've been listening to the Status Go podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or get more information at intervision.com. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, find Intervision on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thank you for listening. Until next time.